Hello, good morning. I hope everyone is doing amazing today. First, we want to start off by welcoming you in and let me tell you who you exactly are, right? We are speaking to the people who have been wondering, can you have it all? Can we have career? Can we have a great love life? And can we be religious at the same time or spiritual? We're going to get into it all. So I hope you guys have a nice cup of coffee or you are relaxed and we will get right in. So, before we get in or as we're getting in, I want to tell you guys who I am because it might be like, why are you talking about this, man? And so my name is Quinnell Hickman. I am a licensed individual and couples therapist, CEO of Counseling to Comforts in New York and New Jersey. And I love to help women and couples really get clear on what they want and their communication so that they can be happy and in love together or in love with yourself. And I have some beautiful co-hosts here. So I want to give them a chance to introduce themselves. They just look so lovely. You guys should see them. So let's start off with Miss Yaya.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you, for having us, for having me. My name is Yaya. I'm co-host of the Real Talk on God Talk podcast. Good morning, everyone. A little bit about me, why I'm here. I am a Black woman. I am from Brooklyn, New York. Always been a curious person, a spiritual person. A lot of women started to talk about in terms of, can you have it all? Can you have work, career, a love life, a strong relationship with God, a higher power? I'm just going to be so vulnerable with you all on the outset, right? In 2016, I married the love of my life, long time, college sweetheart. And immediately, like 2 months after we got married, I moved 800 miles away from him, and we had a long distance, newlywed relationship. The reason why I did that is because I had a spiritual calling on my life to quit my job, go to Union Theological Seminary, study with Dr. James Cone, forefather of Black liberation theology, God rest his soul, and explore what it meant to pursue ministry, in the real world. Well, first, academically, then out in the real world. And on that journey, I learned so much about myself, who I am, and being able to share with you all both from like a theoretical perspective, yes, but in real life, how this all has played out for me. I'm coming to you all really humbly, not as an expert, not as somebody that can tell you what is going to work, but just some perspectives, some ways to incorporate your mind, your body, your spirit, your relationship with a higher power, to give yourself to the world, whether that's your partner, your job, give of yourself. So I'm really grateful to be here, and
Thank you. That was beautiful. And Sharon, can you tell the people about yourself?
Well, first, I would like to say thank you, Cornell, for allowing me to be a part of this awesome team here. I feel the great energy. Again, I'm Sharon Patterson. I am a creative consultant. I'm also the founder of the Boston Society School and the author of Confessions of Daddy's Girls, Stories of Love, Faith, and Relationship. And what made me write this book, Confessions of Daddy's Girls, is because I've been mentoring women in the church for over 20 years. And I wanted to know what was it that helped them. Some of them had more of a sustainable relationship, and the other ones did not. They had a low valleys and high mountains. And what I found was that a lot of them did not have an engaged father in their lives to affirm them, to really speak into their worth and to build their self-esteem, which caused them to make um, decisions in their relationships that kept them going around the mountain and figuring out what it was. And I didn't think that the church really addressed their deeper needs. So someone said, "You're not a pulpit pastor. You're more out in and about in the community and impacting women's lives on various platforms." So I look at it as faith experiences because each individual, each woman have their own faith experiences with God. Thank you.
Very lovely. So you see who we have here today, right? You know it's about to go down. It's about to be an amazing show. And they've been thanking me, but I want to take a chance to thank CBC, ALC for having us. And I also want to thank you all, the listeners. join me on a little journey, right? I'm going to tie in all that we have discussed so far. So the journey is, if you could imagine a woman who is 20s to 30s, right? Let's add in 40s also. And she is at the pinnacle of her career, right? She has had all these accolades and she is struggling to really be confident about the next step in her journey. With career, she is on the precipice of applying to a new job. And then certain thoughts start to set in, like, can I really do this? Right? Like, am I good enough for this position? Now, I want you to ask yourselves, what would that woman even think if she's thinking this way about her career? What might she think about her love life if she's single? And what might she think about her love life if she's in a relationship? And so, Sharon, she touched on confidence, and I love that, right? Because when I am working with individuals, I usually work with primarily women when I'm speaking to individuals. But the thing that I do the most is to try to tie in your past, right, to your present. And so that question of, can I really do this? That type of self confidence, that type of self love. I'm speaking to you if that fits you, right? If you fit that description, we are going to speak to you today. And the goal is that you walk away with some actionable tips to implement. And my first thing that I would say is to really, really reflect, really sit with yourself. Like, silence is key. That's what I talk to people about, because there's so much hustle and bustle, especially if we're talking about that career driven woman who, let's go with it, she's single, right? So she has nothing but time to focus on work. And the studies are showing that Black women specifically are worker bees. That's how they are referring to us, right? So we do all of this work and we're steady, steady on the go. And we're not putting ourselves first, but we're putting work first, or we're putting family first, friendships first. If she's single, maybe she's too tired to go out and have a good time, or maybe she's too tired to go out and give herself the chance of love. And especially if she's thinking, am I good at this, right? Or can I do this? So I'm going to ask Yaya, and I'm also going to ask Sharon to share what they think, is really important to ask in terms of the silence, like when you're sitting with yourself, what is really important. And I'll hop in on the back end with the therapy piece.
So I'll start us off. I think that silence is so important in terms of making what is kind of the track going on in the back of our minds, making that unconscious, making that subconscious, making the things that we've been taught like come to the surface, right? And so when you're taking that time for silence, whether it be through prayer, through meditation, I'm so glad that we have such a variety of experiences here, because, I come from a theological background, but right now, I would say in my faith journey, I am seeking still. And so while I have Christian values, I tend to incorporate a lot of practices from different areas. And I think that one of the questions that is always asked is, who am I? Like, truly, who am I? What is driving me? And making yourself aware of when you're making decisions based on a deficit, if you're making decisions based on, something that Sharon shared that really resonated with me is, if you grew up without a father, I did for much of my life, and you felt as a child unloved, unheld, uncared for, not beautiful, felt like you're missing something. If now in your 30s, you're going for this career and you're saying, I work for this promotion, I deserve it, but you always have that kind of doubt in your mind. You're going back to those old things, in Matthew 9, John's disciples asked his disciples, why don't you guys fast like the establishment does, right? And Jesus responds and says, you can't put new wine in old wineskins, like you can't eat out of a dirty plate. You can't put in a new weave in your hair if it's dirty. Like, you're not going to do that. And so similarly, to kind of tie it back in, you need to kind of be aware of that old stuff, of that young Yaya, that child Yaya, that talk in your mind. Make that conscious. and then make another decision. And, like whether you use counseling tools to change your behavior or, whatever you use to change your behavior, that's fine. But that first question of who am I and what's driving me, that is just essential. And you can only tap into that in the silence.
I love that. Yes. One of the things that I think about is time famine. When you're busy pursuing career, especially in your 20s, your education, getting a degree, and you're looking at women in their 50s because you aspire to be. But also biologically, you're looking also at love and I'm lonely and how do I make those connections, that spark. So time famine to me is taking the time out mornings to not only listen, but listen for the little girl voice in you. Because that little girl voice is showing up and you don't realize that she's showing up at those tables. She's showing up in your actions and your demonstrations. And I like how you said that we're viewed as worker bees. But when you begin to love is when I look in the mirror, I should see a grown woman. When you learn to love
100%.
and you can show up as the leader that you are, affirming who God says that you are. So there's some things that you can get in a class, in a mentor, in psychology, counseling. Great, because we have to work out our soul salvation. I believe God placed that there for us to do. But that quiet time, like you said, that stillness, let God minister and heal the little girl that's in you, and you can show up more confidently.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you all are saying. I think, as I started this, I said silence is key. And Yaya said the question of who am I and what's driving me. And Sharon said to pay attention to that voice. And I would add that our voice is really a culmination of our past people who have interacted with us. Okay? So when that voice, that critic, that inner critic is coming up, I work with people to figure out whose voice is that? Is it yours, or have you adopted it after hearing from your mom, after hearing from the aunties, or maybe even after hearing, because we talked about a fatherless child, right? But sometimes there is a inconsistency from fathers. And I want to take a little time, to just throw in that there are a lot of fathers who are showing up. So we are not talking about you all, don't cancel me. However, but when your father or your parents or that loved one, that mother or father figure has been inconsistent, that may be where the voice is coming from. Okay. And so when you're sitting with yourself and you're hearing these voices, you have to ask, whose voice is this? Is this me? And if I were unlimited, if nothing were to stop me, who would I be? What would I like to go after? And we spoke about a young girl's voice. And I love that concept because oftentimes before anybody even shuts us down, there is a confidence to us, right? Think about a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old when they're taking these selfies now, they're doing the duck lips. I know, some of this is they're watching older people, but a lot of this is there's just a confidence that we have and other people will break it, right? Before we even get a chance for it to really, really bloom. And so if you were going to ask yourself, what does the unlimited me look like? I want you to sit with that. And I'm big on mindfulness. And that's the sort of thing that will allow you to think and sit still, even if you only have 1 minute, right? So it's you making the most out of your minute. I know we're talking to the worker bee and it's like, I don't have time, right? And I have to sit and I have to do everything else. But if you have 1 minute, you can just sit and take some deep breaths and really think about, who is this voice and what do I want to go after?
Quinn, is it okay if I add a little in
Yes,
here?
sure. Yes,
and
you can.
So I'm 100% with both of you on what you're saying. And I want to add a little bit more. There's also room to question some of that, that role and position of worker bee.
Yeah.
We're here at ALC, right? And it's wonderful that there's so many opportunities for wealth building, for recognize your place in the public life. And there's also a part of you that is not about capitalism. It has nothing to do with making money, with being productive, with doing the things that there's like a place for. But there's a special part of your heart, of your soul, of your spirit that just has nothing to do with any of that. And I think, I was reading Trisha Hirsch's Rest is Resistance. And she talked a lot about the ways in which we can, just challenge that mindset that we have to be productive and we got to be the worker bees and got to save the world, and really like lean into rest. And I just encourage listeners to say that when you're in that career driven mode, there's nothing wrong with putting that on and doing that, but there's a time and a place and a space to really let go of a lot of that also. And I think it's just so important, whether you're using your mindfulness to explore, when that time is and when it's appropriate, great. But I just want to also add in, like, that's for sometimes.
But I love that you said that, because this is about balance. That's how we started off, right? Yes. And that piece of you that is yearning for other things, it's there. You might be quieting it, but it's there. So let's talk about what you're yearning for, right? Because let's get into the love. That's what we're here for, right? Dating is such a hot topic now, and I'm a couples therapist. I love to talk about these things. But, I said that same woman, back to the example, might not be going outside, right? She is tired, and she's like, or she's not confident, and she doesn't think that when she goes outside, she will attract that person, right? And we're talking about balance. So in the quiet times, let's talk about, what will drive your confidence, things that will make you feel like I am that girl. I'm talking to the women, fellas. I love the fellas, but I don't know if this is the couple segment today, but what would make you think that I'm that girl? And a lot of people will say, you have to dress the part, you have to fake it till you make it. I don't like that, truthfully, right? I think that you can only wear a mask, but for so long. Okay, message, girl. Right? So, once again, before you go outside and I kind of agree with the people who are thinking I'm not ready. And if you're thinking I'm not ready, that doesn't mean don't get ready. That doesn't mean just stay there in that space, but that means really take the time to figure out why you're not ready. What are the things that you are most scared of? Is it that culmination of voices? Is it that culmination of experiences that have told you, I'm not worthy of the love that I'm looking for, right? And we talked about really going to God. And this is if you are religious, right? Because we're going to get there too, right? But if there is a piece of you, not even if, there is a part of all of us that we have an internal knowing, right? It's that gut feeling. It's the thing that not even your therapist, and I'm a therapist, but, I digress. That's not even your therapist can tell you, right? There's just a knowing that you have. And so you have to connect with that to figure out what makes you feel like that person, what is limiting you. Once again, if you walk away with nothing else from me, it's what is limiting you, right? And if you are of religious or spiritual background, if you're single, you have a lot of time to pray, right? You have a lot of time to sit still, even on the weekends. And I didn't even get to the people with children, right? But if you have children and you're single, the point is carve out time. I don't want to hear that you don't have it. It's there. We all have 24 hours. You need to figure out how you're going to get it, because we need you to get in love, and we need you to be in love with yourself first and figure out what's going on with you, and then attract the love that you want. You have to go outside, but we have to go outside prepared, right? So before you get out there, the question is, what's limiting me? What don't I believe in myself? And what is my truth? What does the little confident lady in me or girl in me think? And if you're struggling with that, I'm going to tie in the next piece. Sometimes that means you do have to connect with God, right? You have to sit and you have to be still, and you have to say some prayers and ask for some guidance. And one of my favorite prayers and things to ask for, just personally, vulnerably with God, is to move me on my way. Whatever that looks like, right? Like maybe that means that I don't have the same people around me, or maybe that means that I don't even really, I can't plan but for so much, right? I have to trust that there's something that God created me to do, and there's a message that I have, or there's a calling that I have, and there's a way that I can impact people even when I don't even think that it is good, right? So sometimes it's that thing that you're scared to do. And sometimes my prayers just move me out the way so that my fear and my limits, just vulnerably are not getting in the way. And I'm the type of person where I live my raps. So it might sound personal, but yes, I do, right? I believe in and I do the things that I, tell people to do. So a lot of this is what I'm talking about. Yes, I'm a licensed therapist, but I'm also about making things relatable, right? And so that conversation that you're having with God to touch that thing in you. If you want to use my personal ask, right, is God just move me on my way. But I want to get into what Yaya and Sharon think.
Sharon, I want to give
you. Yes. Thank you so much. When it comes to women in relationships, I do think is where you are on your journey. And when you get before God, just be authentic with him. Don't be
Mhm.
afraid to ask for what you want,
Mhm.
because he understands. God understands, and he becomes what you need to be. One of the things that I find about relationships, and that it is found in the scriptures, so many women with different scenarios, so that we can see ourselves in those pages.
Mhm.
And Ruth is a perfect example of a woman who experienced some lows. I mean, she became a widow.
Mhm.
She had fertility issues.
Mm.
She wasn't the same background as her husband as far as faith and those types of things. But because she wanted covenant love, because she just wasn't looking at me, myself, and I, she found love. She was found by a man, Boaz, who was her redeemer. And women outside of the faith experience do not have a problem with saying, I do want a baller. I do want a man who makes a lot of money. I
Okay.
do want a
Right.
child.
Okay.
I mean, they want it all, and they
Right.
speak it all. That's why when we, as daughters of the Most High, and He says, "What do you want?" We have to say, "I want it all." And He
With
says,
conviction.
yes, with conviction, and
Okay.
He will put you on that path to get it all. It may not be all at once, but it's a process. It's a journey.
That's the waiting period. I wish we had more time, but Yaya, what do you think?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take another perspective, right? So right now, like as of 2024, the majority of millennials and Gen Z are moving towards not being religious, not being Christian, Buddhist, Jewish, whatever, but being they call them religious nuns, spiritual but not religious. We all have heard about this, and so
Mhm.
many people are, right? And I think what that points towards is kind of like the blurring of titles and dualities and all these structures, whether it be religion, also relationship, right? And so something that I think about, and I hope that whether you're single, coupled, partnered, whatever, is as you move towards that, starting with yourself. I think Quinnell started with that of like, it starts with self-love that can blossom out into other love.
Mhm.
As you move in that direction, starting to kind of like let go of those preconceived notions and roles of like, this is exactly what a husband does, and this is what a wife does, and this is what it looks like to be spiritual and to pray. I need to get on 2 knees every night and say the same prayer. Like,
Mhm.
like as we question and as we know ourselves more and more, we can begin to move outside of those binaries. I'm going to share like a quick story, right? And so my husband Catholic, grew up Catholic, is Catholic. I grew up non-denominational Christian, but right now I'm seeking. We do not have a set ritualistic spiritual practice. Like we don't go to church on Sundays. However, we still find ways to incorporate that together in like elements of that serve us together into our lives. Our home is truly a sacred space. When it comes to weekly cleanings, it's something that we do together that I think sanctifies our space. We're very careful about who we let into our space, whether it's our physical space or our psychological relationship space. We don't share our intimate details of our business, our marriage, our life outwards in that way.
Mhm.
And I think that there are just some elements of both your spiritual selves and your practical relationship self, if you're in a relationship or even if you're seeking a relationship, that when you start to kind of like mesh those things and combine those things and not be so segmented in your life, like I can feed my spirit or my relationship, but you can find ways to kind of like unify. And I think that that's the goal that many of us are trying to like walk towards. How do we more unify our lives so it's not career, relationship, fitness, like how we bring it together?
Yeah, I love that, right? I love the idea of unifying things. And I think that ties perfectly into our last sort of point, which is, when is it God and spirituality versus therapy, right? And I need to tell you quickly, you need both, period,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like you cannot have one without the other. And I know, depending on where your background or your religious background, people will say that, if you're doing therapy, it's because you're crazy. And if we're at ALC, we're at CBC, right? So I'm talking to the Black and the minorities, right? It's what happened in this house stays in this house. Don't share my business, right? Don't do any of that. And, with therapy, that can be your space to do some of the things that we're talking about if you don't have the time, if you're a worker bee, right? For some reason, I see a lot of quote unquote worker bees set time aside for therapy that they won't set aside for their own quiet time and reflection. It's almost like another meeting, right? And so you can have therapy to be that space where you're reflecting out loud and you have someone there to, help guide you. But then you can also go to church and you can also pray, or you can also sit with that internal knowing, but you absolutely need both. And so I hope that you all got wonderful tips from today. And, I want to give everybody a chance to say that one last thing that they want the listeners to walk away with. And I will start first. And so if you are single, I want you to walk away with, or even if you're in a relationship, but your question to yourself is, what are my limitations? Where is this limiting voice coming from? Is it a combination of all my experiences? And if so, then we work on healing that. In therapy, I ask you the questions, but also, when you talk to God, you're being asked to move out of your way. And I'll share briefly if any of that interests you. I am a New York and New Jersey licensed therapist, and you can find me on Google at www.counselingtocomfort.com, and I will allow the ladies to give you their points and tell you where to find them.
Okay, well, I think if it's one thing that I can leave you with, it is the idea that there's a certain level of seeking flexibility. Like, we don't want to be rigid in our understandings of anything, whether it's your career, your understanding of God and spirituality, your understanding of what the ideal even relationship is. You just want to continuously seek within yourself, seek within God, and it will become apparent. And so I'm just leaving you with some encouragement, I guess. It will come together. It's not a linear type of thing. I am the co-host of Real Talk on God Talk podcast, a podcast for people who skip church for brunch on Sundays. I see we might have a few church skippers for brunchers, maybe.
Not me.
Oh, I hear that. But for those of you that might do that, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram. Follow us. We're pretty active on Instagram. I'm just so thankful for this opportunity and to be able to talk to you ladies today, and you all as well.
Thank you.
And my last words is that no more people pleasing, no more living by performance, and no more seeking approval of men. Just relax and get a faith groove where you're on a journey and God is adding to your life. You're okay. You're in a safe space with him. And so when we just release that religion and just say, I need to get into a faith growth because I have potential in me. I have destiny in me. And I want my spirituality, my faith to cultivate where I need to be. You can find more of this type of talk on blossomsociety.com. And it's a school for women like ourselves who just need a refueling.
I love that. Well, it was amazing to speak to you all. And I hope that the listeners, you all got something amazing. And we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Thank you. All right.